Clerics have been with us since the inception of the game. The first ever cleric was a Van Helsing-inspired vampire hunter in Dave Arneson's Blackmoor campaign. Now, D&D was based on chainmail, a set of rules for medieval wargaming. Given the prevalence of the Catholic Church in medieval Europe, any wargame or role-playing game based on that period would surely have to reflect that fact. When looking at original D&D, we can see several spells which obviously originate from the Bible, such as turn sticks to snakes and insect plague. Considering the amount of blessings and miracles and spell-like occurrences in the Bible, it was obviously a good source of inspiration. Throughout the history of D&D, alignment has played an important role, and I wonder if this influenced the prevalence of the cleric, or whether the inclusion of the cleric made alignment so important to the game. Right up to the current version of the game, the cleric has been a steadfast and necessary role in the adventuring party. Well, I'm here to put an end to that, with a surely unpopular opinion that clerics should be removed from the game. I look forward to much outrage in the comments section. Credit goes to Dan Delta Collins, who first inspired me along the path of anti-cleric rhetoric. I've linked his truly invaluable blog in the video description. So, why remove clerics from the game? The sword and sorcery genre can be more easily captured, with only 3 classes of fighter, mage and thief. Gods in the genre may be present, but the righteous cleric seems incongruous to the band of ne'er-do-wells found in such fiction. The same applies to the grimdark genre, which plays even more on the moral ambiguity seldom associated with the cleric. When it comes to heroic fantasy, the genre most associated with the current rule set, the cleric seems more fitting. But remember, the major works of Tolkien, whom I consider the forerunner of modern heroic fantasy, do not include clerics, and a pantheon of sorts is only developed in works such as the Silmarillion. Even historically, the cleric as mace-wielding warrior was not a common occurrence. The more recognisable Knights Templar or Holy Crusaders were not priests, and anyway, they fit the archetype of paladin or knight more closely than cleric. Therefore, the cleric's inclusion seems to really be an appendage to D&D with little link to the fiction and history that inspired it. I struggled to come up with examples in fantasy fiction that include a cleric style of character, aside from perhaps Friar Tuck. So removing the cleric can help to more easily achieve a sword and sorcery or grimdark tone. Secondly, when creating a campaign, there is no need to invent a pantheon if players cannot choose a cleric. This is a task that becomes compulsory if you include clerics in the party. While it can be a fun world-building exercise, a lot of time is required to invent a pantheon which is simultaneously believable and supports the game's rules. Of course, this is something that you can still choose to do, and priests and clerics can remain in the many temples of your world if you wish. The idea of the ragtag group of tomb raiders is more plausible when the cleric is absent, and the obligatory moral disagreement between the cleric and the thief can be avoided. The disagreements between the two classes was once an interesting role-playing exercise, but the conflict grows stale with each iteration. The argument tends to have the same outcome in my experience. The cleric and thief agree to disagree. The cleric will make sure he's out of the room when any thievery or prisoner executions take place, and if he does happen to see something untoward, he'll deliver a stern warning to the party, which will eat up 10 minutes of game time. I'm happy to avoid this. There is also no need to justify the use of the cleric's healing magic on followers of a different god or a morally wayward companion. The cleric as holy warrior in shining armour always felt strange as a standard class. It feels like that knightly archetype is suited to a specific type of campaign, such as an Arthurian legend, and this role is fulfilled by the paladin. I think it's more suitable that a cleric should be an unarmoured priest with a simple stave in the style of Friar Tuck. But without clerics, will there not be fundamental parts of the game missing? Healing spells are the cleric's rather boring forte, and without healing spells the party will need to rest more. If healing potions are made more readily available, the problem is solved, with the additional benefit that each player is now responsible for their own healing, rather than having the job delegated to the cleric. Introducing wands of cure wounds can also help the party's survivability, and will be a valued item to carry around. Alternatively, the party can simply be more careful. Turn Undead is the next big issue. Turn Undead can make a mockery of what are supposed to be some of the most terrifying enemies in the game. There is nothing scary about a horde of zombies running away to cower in the corner of the room as they are clubbed to death with no recourse. Removing Turn Undead makes undead as scary as they're supposed to feel. However, there may be room for the Turn Undead ability in some capacity. I would suggest allowing any class to use a holy symbol to turn undead as a first level cleric. The trade-off, obviously, is that they forfeit their normal actions in combat to do so. You could even award truly blessed and rare holy symbols which allow turning at a higher level. There are some other spells which will be missed that have a distinct impact on the game, namely spells that remove curses, negative levels, and diseases. These spells have always felt rather lame to me and trivialise curses and diseases. Questing for a cure to a disease or a curse is a great adventure plot, and the motivation and consequences are built in. We would also see the disappearance of raised dead and resurrection, but in my opinion that's a very good thing. Those spells should not exist, though I may be in a minority on that opinion. The other various spells exclusive to clerics can easily be added to the campaign in potions, scrolls, and magic items at your preference, and you always have the option of including clerics that are bound to a temple and can cast such spells with the appropriate offering and liturgy. In my own campaign, I exclude clerics, and so far none of the players have complained. The party seems much more like a motley band of treasure hunters driven by profit and wanderlust, rather than some tag-alongs to a heroic priest. Religion is not absent in the campaign, but there is no necessity to shoehorn religion and morality into every adventure. Healing is accomplished with potions that are reasonably priced, or with resting during and between adventures. I'm nothing but a hypocrite though, as of course in the campaign that I play as a player, I play as a cleric, and an especially preachy one at that. It's a radical idea that you may not be convinced by, but perhaps give it a try for your next one-off session and see how it turns out. I am as usual considering the OSR here, and not the more modern game. It may not be as easy to disentangle the divine from the 5th edition or Pathfinder. Let me know in the comments section what you think about removing clerics from the game, and if you'd like to support my channel, you can subscribe or even pick up one of my books at Drive-Thru RPG. And as always, thanks for watching.